Hi guys, so let's now consider how you can use regulation to address market failure. Okay, now this is really talking about using laws and regulations which can ban certain behaviours. Now, whether that's on behalf of consumers or whether it's on behalf of potential producers in a given market. So the examples where this is really relevant include negative production and consumption externalities. So these consumption externalities, of course, involve demerit goods and actually banning consumption or regulating consumption of those goods. That's why, of course, you are not allowed to actually go and buy alcohol until you're 18, you're not allowed to smoke or buy tobacco until you're 16, not allowed to actually go and play the lottery and so on. So there's various restrictions that are in play, but then when it comes to more damaging goods such as heroin, cocaine, of course, then there's a complete ban in place because of the extent of those negative externalities. Now, this could also help to avoid the exploitation of labour. So the exploitation of labour, and that's why we have a minimum wage, of course, but there's other ways in which there's regulations, of course, and that includes like health and safety is another example. Alright, so finally we've got monopoly power. When it comes to monopoly power, you want to ensure that one firm doesn't have too much power, and you may actually choose to break up a monopoly. Now, that's something that has been undertaken with BT and BT Openreach. Okay, so that's an interesting case study to consider in relation to that. Now, what are the potential advantages of using regulations to actually address market failure? Well, the first one is that it's not regressive. It's not like a tax being imposed on a good which can affect the poor to a greater extent. So that's a real plus point in favour of it. It does send a clear message as to how damaging that particular behaviour is, whether it's about the negative production externalities and the constant burning of fossil fuels or something like that, or it could be about banning diesel cars in the city centres as another example, which is very relevant to what's happening now. And it can, of course, ban the most damaging negative externalities, as we talked about with those harder drugs. It provides real clarity as well to consumers and producers that that is unacceptable. Okay. Moreover, we can also see that it's likely to be more effective than taxation when the demand for the good is price insensitive. So that is where the good is highly addictive in its nature. So by actually banning it or regulating the consumption of that good, then that could be a really strong point in favour of it. There are disadvantages, of course. So we've got black markets, we've got law breaking. So it might simply mean that you have teenagers drinking in a park, or it might mean that you actually have criminal gangs, of course, that then provide these harder drugs, and they provide them in far worse quality to the open market, and that, of course, has caused numerous deaths as well. So that can actually make the situation worse. Moreover, we can also see that bans may be socially inefficient, and therefore there may be better options available. So, okay, it's one thing to actually ban cars from a city centre or particular types of cars, like diesel cars, but is that actually socially efficient? Well, of course, when it comes to actually introducing that ban, there is forewarning. There are a number of years in the run-up to determining when that law will actually come into place. So you need to make sure that that is really well communicated. Otherwise, a congestion charge system may be far more efficient, as we see in London, of course. What about the cost of enforcement? We can see regulating black markets, law breaking. There's a big cost of enforcing this as well, and there's the real potential for government failure, the government getting things wrong here, and unintended consequences that may arise from these regulations. Okay, great stuff, guys. I hope that's been useful. See you next time.